What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of epic conversations. And I'm the host of Epic Conversations.
Something's got to separate you from the rest. So you got to be willing to do whatever.
In my experience, black men have struggles like having community with each other.
But she represents the mammy stereotype.
Now that was epic. I needed that. What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads, fathers, and male caregivers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. And we're broadcasting live on Tuesday, September 16th. And I'm here in Toronto. And the weather in Toronto has been immaculate over the last few days. I mean, it's like today, like 26, 27 degrees Celsius, but there was no humidity. I was driving around with windows down. Didn't have to put on the air conditioning. Windows down. That was such an amazing. Yes, you know what? I wish I could just drive around all day, just with my windows down and just enjoy the nice weather. But, you know, we have things to do. We got some things to do. So we're hanging out tonight on an important conversation we're going to be doing tonight. A really important conversation. Most of you have probably heard about the shooting and killing of Charlie Kirk and all the madness that's going on online, offline, etc. But we're going to take a look at it from a Black perspective. And we have two incredible thought leaders joining us this evening. We have Cesar Ndema-Moussa, who's a regular on Black Canada Talking, which you can catch where you're watching this on Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. And we have the one and only, as the food plane would say, Dr. Taché. I like to call her Doctor, especially with the wonderful attire that she's wearing. Dr. Taché is hanging out with us tonight. And so we're looking forward to this conversation and looking forward to your feedback and your comments, because this is an ongoing topic. There's been so many things that have gone on with this event. And we're going to start from the time that both our friends heard about it to all the crazy things that have been going on. So we're looking forward to great conversation as always. What we're going to do, we're going to take a little break. We'll do some housekeeping, and then we're going to get right into our conversation. So hold tight. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
If the black dollar was not important, they wouldn't be doing these type of commercials to get your business back.
The same people who don't want gun checks, mental health checks, all for open carry, and when your kid gets shot in school, they offer thoughts and prayers. Make it make sense.
Y'all don't understand how our government works.
I think the lesson that we learned from that for years is how miserable people are. Their misery is contagious.
All right, you can catch them Saturdays, Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala, where they try to make sense of the nonsense that's going on in America. And they've been doing a great job, and they've had their comments about this too. I don't know if they'll chat about it this Saturday, but hey, whatever happens, happens. So let's do some housework first. Always subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, like the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, and Substack. Then advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms that I'm part of. Please feel free to email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. And not just because, but because, have you heard about Indie Soup TV? It's a wonderful independent content creators platform run by powered by Dr. Taché and a bunch of great independent content creators. Over 28,000 subscribers on YouTube in about 18, 19 months. And I always remind Dr. Taché and everyone out there, only 4% of all YouTube channels have over 10,000 subscribers. So that is absolutely amazing. Now, before we bring both of them on, I just want to introduce everybody. If you want to Tachi, Cesar Ndema-Moussa. What is going on, family? How we doing? Dr. Tachi, you got to unmute yourself.
Fantastic. I
There
did.
we
I
go.
did. I just did it. Yes, fantastic. And you?
Blessed, highly favored, magnet for miracles, solution for someone's problem, and Black Alicious. One other thing I want to say to everybody, if you want to touch base with any of us, swipe the QR code that's in the corner where our image is, and they'll get you to a place where you can contact with us further. But good to see you, Dr. Tachi and Cesar.
Good. Thank you so much. Hi, Dr. Tachi. Hi, Dr. Vibe.
Hey.
Hello to
Hello,
all our
Dr.
sisters
Cesar.
and brothers. Hello to all our sisters, brothers, and also allies joining us. We will see this in replay. And of course, let us welcome to a great conversation and an important conversation. Not so much on Charlie Kirk and this white supremacist, whatever one's views of him, but truly, ultimately, about us, for us, our community.
Excellent. Looking forward to a great conversation with everybody. And we got some people watching live. Don't be afraid to shout out, put things in the comments. We're here to listen and to learn and share respectful dialogue. So I'm going to start off with both of you. How did you both hear first about the news of Charlie Kirk's death? And what were your initial reactions?
So I first heard about it on social media. Obviously, these days, I am very, even as a journalist, I recognize that mainstream media is iffy at best. And so I'm not always looking at every piece of mainstream media. So I happened to be on, was it YouTube? I can't remember, but that's where I saw it first.
Me, I was actually I was at work. I was out of town in one of my offices out of town, and it's one of my friends in my debate group. We have a debate group among some of our friends, black, but also staff is Asian, Latino, etc. We call it the Black and Brown debate group, and yeah, the guys posted about it, and yeah, that's how I found out. That's how I found out before hitting the news. But I always have some of the legacy media like MSNBC or CNN always playing as one of the tabs on my screen. So
Okay, cool. And just while following up for both of you, what were your immediate feelings or thoughts that came up for you personally and within your circles?
the
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, immediate feeling. So soon as I heard shot in the neck, I was sure he was going to die. But my first initial feeling was that this is unfortunate. The reason I say this is, and I absolutely stand by it, no one deserves to die for the words, no matter how inflammatory, appalling, disgusting, no matter how much you disagree with them. If you kill someone over the words, you make them the winner of a debate that didn't happen with you. Um, it's the same logic as, and I mean, he didn't get killed, but Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie would not be known if he wasn't of the fatwa against him, and lately of the assassination attempt to his life that sight in one eye and other injuries. So if someone uses words as the weapon, and as far as I know, he has never killed a black person or LGBTQ person or immigrant, etc. Don't get me wrong, words are very, very powerful. Words are very powerful. Perfect example, as far as I know, a man named Adolf Hitler never killed a Jewish person. But we know the consequences of his words and thus of his politics. So I can give so many of such examples, um, including many American presidents and the consequences domestically and abroad of so many million dead people. Still, for his words, no matter how one disagrees, and with much reason, and as I said, him just as Trump last year, I fundamentally disagree with both men. But an assassination attempt, as in this case, a successful assassination, terrible thing for in politics, in society, because political violence did not just start, or some media talking about the renewal of political violence. No, 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 no. We are black people. Our heroes, far too often, our heroes have been assassinated on both sides of the ocean, on the motherland, as here in the diaspora. And too often, the heroes of the Western world, the heroes of white supremacy, are our oppressors. But still, it is not something I celebrate. It is not something that, as much as I can absolutely understand our people, it is not something that we should celebrate because it becomes not only martyrdom for him in terms of the right, in terms of the MAGA, in terms of the fundamentalist Christians who are not really Christian, to be honest, but it becomes a tool to further oppress all of us, and especially us who are not white, and especially us who are black. Allow me to stop there for now.
So, will you repeat the question the way you said it, Dr. Vibe? I wanted to make sure I'm answering the correct thing.
Yeah, 100%. So the question is, what were the immediate feelings or thoughts that came up for you personally and within your circles?
Mhm. So my first thought was this country is dangerous. That's the first thing that came to mind. If this place that they're building up for them can swallow up one of them, that really shows you how dangerous this place is. This place, that was the first, I was like, this place is dangerous. That is the first thing that came to mind. Let me echo the sentiment of Cesar that you know, I am not one to celebrate when a life is taken. I don't necessarily think that is something to celebrate. In my circles, here's what's happening. I think there's a numbness in terms of not necessarily, well, we see this all the time. Okay, it's just like not necessarily even indifferent. It's just like a numbness and a disbelief that I'm hearing. And let me give you an example. So years ago, there was someone I knew who just had terrible ways about him, and it stemmed from background and upbringing, but he like treated everyone the same way. But again, background and upbringing, and you understand why, but you don't excuse it. So he ended up having a a death in the family. And yeah, it's sad. And it was like, oh, condolences. but he had treated everybody so badly that it was almost as if, oh yeah, condolences, and you moved on, because the time to treat people well is not when there's something you need. The time to treat people well is all the time. And so now you're surprised and a little bit upset that nobody is like floundering to your, because you treated people so badly. And I liken that situation to this. Even though it's not the same type of thing, it's that same type of sentiment, right? And so that's what I'm hearing, that nobody I know is celebrating this type of thing. So you're hearing that, but I am thinking something that is very ironic. And I'm not saying this is widespread, but I live in Florida. So you have certain population of people that live here that tend to be very, I'm not even going to say conservative, right wing, wackadoo, right wing. And so that's what they are. And so what is happening is, I'm like, well, how interesting is it that these same people that are, mourning with shrouds over this individual are the same people that celebrated when they thought Fidel Castro was dead.
Mm. Mm.
So why is this different somehow? And this really shows me the level of self-hatred you have if
Mm.
this is the case. Now, and this is not a commentary on Fidel Castro, the way he ran things, but why is it terrible now for people, if anybody is celebrating this? I have not seen that, but I know there are probably factions. But you yourself were in the streets of Miami when you all thought Fidel Castro was dead. Is it because it's you? I don't get it, but I'll land there.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. You want to add something to that, Cesar?
Yes. And I want to make sure that I say this before I forget. So two things. In terms of so many things, and I'm only going to speak as we are here, having a conversation about our people in terms of Black people, but this is not about sympathy. This is not about sympathy, because how to sympathize with someone will so oppose the very causes and the very being for which we are here for. How can I sympathize with someone who will disrespect to such length one of our heroes, as Dr. Martin Luther King? How can I, as an African born Black man, sympathize with a white man who thought colonization was a good thing? These are his own quotes. MAGA people, Justice Department, Donald Trump, they can all try to play to do the typical white supremacist historical revisionism that they do, just as books on African forced labor type of thing. No, no, no. His own quotes. So this is not about sympathy. Further to that, this is not even about empathy. There is a debate between Dr. I am having Dr. Finkelstein. Dr. Finkelstein, Israeli doctor who is pro-Palestine, and our brother, Dr. Cornel West, in which they ultimately tackled the question, which was, can you sympathize and have empathy for child killers in relation to the conversation of Palestine? This is not about empathy, as Charlie Kirk himself, his own words, rejected the notion of empathy, and further to that, rejected empathizing with the parents of children murdered by gun violence in his advocacy of the in his absolute advocacy of the Second Amendment rights, aka the right to bear arms, in a maximalist understanding of that right. Do not ask me to sympathize, and I'm speaking here for many, the majority, the vast majority of Black people. Do not ask me, do not ask us to sympathize with someone who look down on us as a white supremacist would, even though he has one or two Black friends, such as Candace Owens. And do not ask us to empathize with a man who wouldn't even empathize with murdered children on the four corners of the world. Part of the notion of humanity is empathizing with the fate of children, whether they are in Gaza, in Congo, in China, or in any street of America. The empathizing alien children from whatever planet. But ultimately, it becomes a matter of free speech and life, in the sense in which I cannot rejoice at the assassination of this man, no matter how much I disagree with him, as, to give you an example, as a man, a public speaker, educated, an educator, senior leader, EDI, you name it, whatever my position, I speak privately, publicly, very openly that God does not exist. So how can I be surprised at some people feeling offended by what I say, no matter how factual I can argue it, no matter how I can talk about my education, no matter how I can prove to them whatever I say? How can I be offended that some people would call me Satan? So how can I be surprised but that still would not justify for them to physically harm me? Therefore, I cannot be okay with even a man like Charlie Kirk. Well, by the way, he was not debating on college campuses. You are not going to be a 30-plus-year-old man debating with 19, 21-year-olds. That's not a debate. But I still cannot, and we cannot agree with the way by which he was killed, just as we cannot agree with him being killed, period. Because if not, it becomes each and any one of us would dare to voice an opinion. And as Black people, let us remember, it wasn't that long ago. Just the voicing of an opinion by a Black person was enough for them to be killed. Just as not that long ago, just the voicing of an opinion by a woman justified by society in that time, her being raped, her being killed. It's a very dangerous slippery slope.
Anything you want to add on that, Dr. Chacha, or I can have some more context to bring to the conversation?
I this is really difficult. This is a very difficult conversation. I think, to go back to what you were talking about what's being heard in circles and how people are reacting, or let's talk about the expected reaction. I think that people are used to Black people. I'm not even going to talk about all people of color. Let me talk about who I know. Let me talk about Black people. People are used to an overwhelming amount of empathy, of sympathy, of prayers, of I forgive you, forgiveness from Black people. And what people don't realize is you have driven Black people now to the edge of where people are tired, and they're not getting the usual, oh, thoughts and we're so sorry, we forgive. They're not getting that. And this is some of where the indignation is, because it is signaling definite change. Well, don't be angry. You did this. You pushed people to the edge that they're so, like the example I gave before. You pushed people to the edge that they were so annoyed and so angry that now you wonder why you're not getting the level of sympathy and you did this. You did this. So while again, I'm saying I have not seen people personally, people celebrating. I know there are people not even celebrate. I'm gonna say this. Black people, from what I've seen, first of all, I've seen a lot of I look at a lot of social media, of course, because I'm analyzing what people are saying. So there are people that are, mixed reactions. They're talking about, while it's terrible that somebody died, you need, your words dictate XYZ. I'm seeing that. Then I'm seeing some other things. So this really is not even the conversation to have. So, moving on to this next part, the conversation to have is what is so terribly wrong in the United States of America that things like this continue to happen? That's the real conversation. This is a problem. It's a real problem, and I don't even want to call them. One of a good friend, Elise Stallworth, she said, and she's really an activist herself. She said we need to stop calling them white supremacists because this indicates that they are supreme and they are not. So she's been calling them white supremacists. I mean, white extremists. So those extremists that are doing all of this, there's a real problem, and they refuse to do anything. The people in power that are on their side don't see anything wrong with it, and that's a problem. When you don't see anything wrong with heinous killing, unless it's one of your own that, by the way, was killed by one of your own, there's a problem. There's a lack of critical thinking skills. There's a lack of empathy and sympathy, because those are things that are considered weak. But then now you want people to have, and see, this is the thing, you want people to have sympathy when it's you, but you don't give a damn when it's anybody else. I don't know what school you went to, but you probably need to go back and get your money, because they failed you. They failed you seriously. If you don't see that these things, as Cesar said, words are very powerful and does not excuse killing. It does not, or unaliving. It does not excuse hurt and heinous actions at all. But what does science teach us? Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, I'll I'll let you continue, Dr. Vibe.
Let me just very quickly add to what Dr. Tachi just said. There are so many things we can talk about, of course, and Dr. Vibe, I might be stepping forward on probably a question that you're going to ask, or I might repeat what I'm going to say here. Dr. Tachi, you are in Florida. Let us go back 13 years ago. Was it 13? Yeah, I think it was 13 years ago. 5 years ago, George Floyd,
Mhm.
that Breonna Taylor, Philando Castile, Trayvon Martin, the people who made fun of people being killed will look like us on the screen.
They did.
Men, black woman, black child. The people who made fun of them. The people who talked about, oh, if he had a father, if he had a job, if he wasn't a criminal, if. The people who made fun of the dead or the deaf are asking of black people, not just black people, but especially of black people, to not make fun of the killing of one of their so-called heroes. We should not make fun. And please don't get me wrong, I am not one of those
Yeah,
honor the dead type of person. I'm not. You don't go to the Jewish community and tell them that they should honor the death of Hitler. They look at you like you're crazy. Just like you don't go to
exactly.
Americans and tell them they should honor the death of bin Laden. They look at you like you're crazy. So no, I am not into the honor the dead. However, the hypocrisy is blatant. The people fund Trayvon Martin being killed, who elevated Zimmerman, gave money to Zimmerman. The people who supported all these Karens, the people who give GoFundMe money to that lady who made fun and called the N-word an autistic black child. The people who are still making fun of George Floyd, including this Charlie Kirk, who made fun of
Yes.
George Floyd's death as if George Floyd himself did not have a child. They're asking us Black people to have that empathy and that show humanity. Professor Rabideau, who have mentioned before on your show, Dr. Vibe, unfortunately, he's deceased. Brilliant professor who studied religion and African Americans, talked about how Christianity that was imposed during slavery upon Blacks became a tool of survival, not because Black people became more Christian than whites, but because through Christianity, Black people could make the argument of the humanity for lesser mistreatment.
Mm.
However, it came with a burden of constant proving the humanity. And this is what we saw, I believe, in 2016 or 15, when a young white man by the name of Dylan Roof
Yes.
himself admitted going into that Black church that they treated him so well. They welcomed him. His own words, they treated him so well, and yet he still killed, I believe, 9 of our people. Our people. It could have been any of us sitting there. He didn't ask names. He didn't ask background. He didn't ask if you're African Caribbean or you are an American descendant of slavery. He didn't ask any of that. He just wanted to kill Black people. And yet, there were still some family members of the deceased who forgave him in court, to the shock of everyone. Enough of that. It is enough. This man will claim to be Christian. What is it? Live by the sword, die by the sword. We should never agree to someone being killed for the words. However, we have to hold someone accountable for the words. And it's not often that I will quote a pastor or a priest, but the Black pastor, I believe Wesley, someone help me if I get the name wrong, he talked about one does not lose accountability of their life, of whatever the behavior of their life in death. Black pastor very recently, very powerful message in terms of how we must not agree with a man being assassinated for his words, but we must not be hypocrites to the fact that this is the content of the man and his own words. This is the type of human being he was. And it's tragic because he died at 31 years old. His children, for the rest of their life, this is the quotes. Oh, of course, they'll be in the right wing, whatever, but this is what the world will remember of his father. And when you think about, for example, I'm thinking here about a white man. I believe he was even a member of the KKK. I think he was the governor of Louisiana or a politician, George Wallace, in the
Yes.
60s, the 70s. In the end part of his life, I believe he survived an assassination attempt or something like that.
Yeah.
And if it led him to revisiting some of his views to a point where he became an ally of the Black community, and he even had Black people re-electing him based on his change. Charlie Kirk will never have the opportunity of such a change.
All right. Do I have both your permission to interrupt just for a moment?
Absolutely.
Okay. So a few things. Watching from England, Leon Henry says, "Good morning. Sorry I'm late." So he's 5 hours ahead of us, but he is here. So good to have you here. Also,
Hey, Leon.
I've got to give some, again, if you want to get a hold of Cesar, again, you can email him at present@rootsandculturecanada.com, Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery. I forgot the Y there. Sorry, Cesar. And then Dr. Tachi is on Instagram at, what's going on with my spelling these days? You know, this is terrible. This is terrible. Let me fix this in real time. I don't like that. So let me change that in real time because that's the type of guy I am. All right. So Dr. Tachi, Instagram, Dr_Tachi. And then Indie Soup BD on YouTube. The link is there. And you know what? If I did it for the lady, I have to do it for the gentleman. So let me fix up Cesar's also. Gotta be fine. Gotta be right here. So let me do it
Careful,
right.
careful,
Yes.
Dr. Van. I'm gonna tell you to put the accent aigu to the
It
ease of my
doesn't
name.
allow me to do it with my keyboard. Sorry though. I know it has to be proper, but I'll try. But Cesar, it's corrected now. All right. So we
Thank you,
want
my
to
brother.
get that right. Another comment that's coming in here. Uh, a LinkedIn user says, good point about the opportunity to change. Never thought about that perspective. Interesting. And thank you for saying that.
That's why we're here for, my brother or my sister or ally. That's why we're here for. Thank you.
100%. What I'd like to do is to quickly read some of the controversial statements that the late Mr. Kirk made about the black community. So I'm going to about
Must we?
okay. So I'm just reading. I take about maybe 2 minutes. So in early 2024, Kirk drew heavy backlash for saying, "quote If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified." Unquote. He made the comment during a podcast conversation about airline diversity hiring practices, sparking outrage online. Many saw the remark as promoting a harmful stereotype that black professionals are inherently less competent, and as a clear example of racial undertones that defined his commentary. Critics argued it showed exactly how Kirk used race to stoke division among largely white conservative audience. His hostility towards civil rights movement was even more explicit. Though he once praised Martin Luther King Jr., he later reversed his course, calling the civil rights leader, quote, awful, unquote, and, quote, not a good person. At a December 2023 event, he declared the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a, quote, huge mistake, unquote, claiming it created a permanent bureaucracy designed to push diversity, equity, and inclusion. To his critics, this wasn't just a policy stance, it was a rejection of one of the most important legal protections for Black Americans in the modern era. And then finally, his rhetoric around George Floyd also revealed his disdain. During his 2021, quote, exposing critical race, unquote, tour, Kirk dismissed Floyd as a, quote, scumbag, unquote. He went further, insisting the public outcry after Floyd's death was, quote, exaggerated, unquote, and driven by, quote, corrupt voices, unquote. These comments drew widespread condemnation and reinforced accusations that Kirk trivialized Black suffering while defending systems that perpetuate white racial inequality. So those are just some of the statements that were made by Mr. Kirk during his time. Let me just go ahead, Dr. Tachi.
Well, there's a problem if the only way you are tall is because you push everybody else down. And that's what he and other people like him do because they're mediocre. And I'm going to say this, they get to the positions where they are because of a quote good old boy network, or they have people on the inside that help them. And I'm not saying everybody, but often this is the system that exists here, right? It was built for only certain people to exceed and excel. And so this is what ends up happening by default. So you end up with a lot of mediocre people who are there by default of trying to keep other people down and are only there because they kept other people down. So of course you're going to look tall if you force everybody else to their knees, but in reality you are sub mediocre. So of course they're going to say all these things. All of those inflammatory statements are here. You don't really have much else going for you except the fact that you're some sort of personality. How can I get people on my side? I can be inflammatory. I can say all of these incredible, ridiculous things and people will follow me. That will make me important. Does that sound like anybody else that we know that really doesn't have a whole lot going for them, not very intelligent, doesn't have the intelligence of two smashed flies, but I can get people to follow me by fanning the flames of hatred because this is what they believe? So, that's why I'm almost like I almost pity you because you really don't have anything else. And people who follow this line of thinking, they have nothing else. You are so sub mediocre and you're afraid of not now. You actually have to try because what you have done is you have created, I mean, we created, but you have forced the creation of a super of a super cohort, right? Because you so wanted to push people of color, particularly black people, down, we had to adapt and become 10 times better. What is that thing we're always told? No, you have to be 10 million times better. And so we end up getting 10 million degrees. We end up doing all these things. And now you're mad. You're upset because you created the conditions for us to excel. You're mad because look at Africans, for example, and Caribbean people. We come to this country and then get all these degrees and excel. And we're not supposed to. Look at black people. At this point, one of the most educated groups in this country is black women. But you do everything you possibly can to try and oppress, and we still excel. Oh, wouldn't you be mad if your agenda was to crush people and we're still excelling? If we were
Okay.
listen, if we were going to go away, that would have happened soon after enslavement, and it didn't happen. Sorry
Okay.
to tell you.
No problem. Before I ask, come back to Cesar. Again, if screen, and there's also comments, and people are commenting, and we appreciate that. So we got a comment here from Shirley, who's in charge of the Black Canadian content creator, says, as a Canadian, I had at is what is approach cause of my revolutionary mind set, but here Cesar made me think on the opportunity of change. I get it and I feel that. And she also says, it pops up. Come on, there we go. They are deeply afraid of the pendulum of change that they see, hear, and feel and witness that is coming, and it scares the heck out of them.
May I say something really quickly? Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of this is based off of an unfounded fear. Let me be the first to say we really don't give a damn about you. That you know what that comes from thinking often that you're more important than you are. When I say they, I'm talking about this extreme faction of unthinking people, of non-thought people. That's who I'm talking about when I say they. I'm not talking about people that are on the side of right at all. But it's unfounded. We do not care. We don't care. Let me speak for me. I don't care. You are thinking that you are way more important than you are. Please don't give yourself that title because we don't care. We're just sitting here. If you talk to anybody, that's Black American or whatever, they're like, we're just trying to mind our own business, basically, and be. That's all we care about. You are the ones that care that much. If you put half as much of the effort into yourselves and becoming better that you did in us, you really would be something, that faction, but you don't because it points to you really don't want to do anything anyway. So, in order to continue to do nothing, it's easier to antagonize and terrorize other groups than to actually improve yourself. That's a daunting task, self improvement, something they don't think they can do. That faction doesn't think they can do. And clearly, you're proving you can't because you're spending time that you could use for self improvement on another group because you're blaming your problem on this group that doesn't have as much to begin with. Does this make sense?
Cesar?
Good vibe. Um, Allow me to first give an argument for the fans of Charlie Kirk, which is, as you quoted him and you read for 2 minutes about him, what is it that they like to say? You didn't watch the whole debate, the whole video. You're taking him out of context, etc., etc. Lies, lies because they're being exposed, and as you name these examples, and this is part of the reason why I wish he was alive. Most people, most people, including whites, had no clue what that man was. Let's not get it twisted. This was an epiphenomenon. Oh, yeah, he had a lot of followers. Please don't get me wrong. But for people like us, who for years, who follow politics, we've known about Turning Point USA for years. We've known about Candace Owens. We know about him. But for most people, they have no clue who that guy was. They discovered him last week. But this is a man who basically called our sister, Supreme Court Judge Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, a DEI hire, and he got blasted by being reminded that he is a community college dropout, while Justice Jackson is an Harvard graduate cum laude. This is a man who basically, when he talks about black pilots or black female cashier, whatever you want to call it, again, that racism of too many white people fueled by conscientious ignorance, something that our brother, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said was very dangerous. Administration that fights so hard against DEI is now eating itself as they're starting to see how incompetent and unqualified the members of the administration are. A certain Matt Gaetz from the start was rejected because technically people started to see him as a pedophile. We can talk about each one of them, RFK Jr., Peter Exev, but notice how they started because of the Charlie Kirk situation. It got to a new level with the only brown guy in the administration, aka the Hindu who wishes to enter Valhalla. Don't ask me how that's possible. My studies on world religion did not include a Hindu brown man entering Valhalla. Kash Patel being pointed at being so incompetent as an FBI director, even by MAGA people. And now you have Pam Bondi, who just a day or 2 days ago was literally talking about fighting against hate speech, and even people on the right, including MAGA, talking about, hey, the First Amendment protects free speech, including hate speech, and now, she's remixing her language. We are talking here about conservatives who call themselves Christians, but really they're Christian nationalists. They have nothing to do with the values of Christ. They have nothing to do whether you believe that Jesus Christ existed or not. And for those who misunderstand me, I clearly say Jesus Christ, the divine character, did not exist, but sure, Yeshua most likely existed. So people have to be careful here. Like, Imhotep, who existed, was made a god after he died. He was not a god, but Imhotep existed. But back to Charlie Kirk, it's important to understand that these people basically, due to their own ignorance, aka, how likely are you going to have in America a black pilot who is not qualified? How likely is a brother or a sister able to fool American Airlines or you name it, South Wing or whatever in the Western world in the 21st century? How likely is a black person, a white-owned company, and rise all the way to the level of CEO? Most unlikely. And when you look at a lot of the things that were said, Dr. Vibe, we were talking about George Floyd, the denial of humanity for people who claim to be Christian, the denial of humanity. Forget George Floyd. We can talk about, oh, he was a criminal. He had a criminal record before he got killed. And those children murdered by gun violence in elementary school, what did they do? What is the sin? What is the sin? And we're talking about the same Charlie Kirk fans who are not talking about the fact that the same day he got assassinated, there was a school shooting at a school, notably due to the party that defends the NRA, aka legal corruption, aka lobbying, in preventing the progress of gun reform, which, as Charlie Kirk said himself, you have to accept a certain number of deaths to protect the Second Amendment rights, aka the right to bear arms, which ultimately is the cause of his death along his inflammatory speeches. The man lived and died by the First and Second Amendment. The man lived and died by the Second and First Amendment. For us Black people, it's important to understand this, but also understand how the very nature of this country, which is built on violence from the pilgrims with colonization upon the indigenous, violence since 1619, the enslavement of Africans, violence towards those migrants, whether they be Chinese or Mexicans, following the taking over of what today we call New Mexico and California, aka those are actually Mexican lands that were taken over by the US government. There's the the Mexican in New Mexico, California is technically not illegal. The violence in this country has continued not just through the 60s, JFK, MLK, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, Ronald Reagan in the 80s,
Bobby
etc.,
Kennedy.
etc. Bobby Kennedy, exactly. But notice this administration and this president are turning Charlie Kirk into a martyr. Yes, he's one of their own. He was very successful, the most successful young MAGA, notably Trump recognizing that he was a big contributor to his re-election, likely more than even Elon Musk. But the Minnesota House representative who got killed with her husband, and anyone knows my view about dogs, but her being killed with her husband, they're not getting the attention they should be getting by the president, even though they were politicians. America, Dr. Vi, remember, I said it many times, it's a hot summer. Donald Trump, the decline of America, Donald Trump is pressing on the gas pedal. This is killing the erosion of America in terms of its soul, in terms of the what is it, the city on the hill, the American dream, etc., etc. Donald Trump 2.0 is pressing the gas pedal towards its decline.
May I really quickly add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I submit that this country has been soulless for a while. There have just been rules and laws in place that people respected that stopped us from seeing the lack of a soul. This is not a new thing. This has always been brewing under the surface. But just like a cheap sweater from Walmart, if you pull that thread, which is the laws that are holding things together, the whole thing unravels. And that's what's happening now. So it's not that this is when a lot of people always act like, oh my gosh, I don't recognize this country. We do. We saw this all along. Those of us who have been, oppressed systematically by this country, no matter who you are, you saw that there was a propensity for this to happen. It's just that in the past, there was at least a little bit of respect for the letter of the law. And even if they didn't like it, they upheld it. Now there's no respect for it. Well, what do you expect when you put somebody who is a celebrity, a quote unquote celebrity reality star in the White House and you expect respect for the law, he can't read the law. He doesn't know the law, doesn't understand it.
Hmm, okay.
So I submit that this place has been soulless for quite a while.
All right. Having some great comments, so let's put them up here. ACBN Canada, which means Ryan Knight's in the house, says everyone hates when a mirror is put up to their face and they don't like what they see. Everything Republicans are saying about the killer, they are saying about themselves.
Mhm.
And he also adds, and what they are saying about the Democrats. And Shirley says, it's just showing me that America is such a wild, wild west, and they're trying to bring it back to that time. Absolutely. Conversation point, and Dr. Tachi, you know I always turn to you when it comes to media coverage. Let me ask, what are your thoughts, or how do you feel the mainstream media has covered the story, especially regarding Black perspectives?
Not very well, if you ask me. I have not really been uh, as pleased with the coverage as could be. I mean, they covered this, but they really appear to be covering this from a particular light. And then all we have to do is not just look at the coverage itself, but look at the treatment by these news organizations of journalists who say something and then they end up getting fired. How many is it up to now? 3 or 4 that have been let go because of comments that were made. And I will say this, as a journalist, you are not supposed to editorialize unless you have a public affairs show or some sort of editorial show where they're asking for your opinion. And honestly, I think this was the case in almost all of these, where this was not like a news broadcast where you're giving the facts. There was bit of editorializing going on because of the type of news show program it was, and that comes with the territory. But let's look at, you have to follow the breadcrumbs at who owns what, who's tied to what, which is why you have to be very cautious of who you listen to and what you listen to in mainstream media now, because so much of mainstream media is tied to corporations that have ties with politics now. So you really have to be careful of what's what. At one point, Washington Post was like the gold standard to in terms of newspaper, that and the New York Times. Well, who owns the Post? Jeff Bezos. Who is it?
Okay.
Yes, so you have to follow the breadcrumbs to
And
see
he's
who
and he's
owns
one of
what.
47's tech bros, right?
Yes, exactly. All you had to do was look at the inauguration and who was in the room, and you know what to think. Right? So I'm not expecting great coverage about this from any mainstream news organization. In fact, there has been better coverage that has come out of independent media about all of this. If you look at Don Lemon, if you look at Joy Reid, if you look at this program, if you look at Midas Touch, if you look at so many independent news organizations that have discussed this and discussed this well. I'm not just talking about anybody who's a blogger who is not just a trained journalist, because I respect bloggers too, but unless you're a trained journalist, I don't know how well you are discussing these things. But I'm getting more insight and more out of the conversation from the independent news than I am from the mainstream media. And we know why, because they're tied to political money and big corporate money.
Cesar, I want to ask you, what do you think Charlie Kirk's death means for ongoing conversations about race, politics, and social justice within Black communities?
How many hours do I get to answer that?
I'm up for doing a part 2 because I still got a pile of conversation, because I think this may be a good 2-part conversation, because this is going to linger for a while. So we can do
Yes.
a part 2 if we need to. I'm more than up for it.
Dr. Vibe, when it happened, I made a post. I can't remember if it was Wednesday or Thursday, but I made a post in which I said how Charlie Kirk will be elevated to martyrdom by the right slash MAGA, while for the left, he will be seen as another fascist who finally died. And us, black people, we are in the middle. The reason I say in the middle, let us look at it this way. And, uh, something that happened a little bit oh, over 100 years ago. America went to war against Spain. And in the American-Spanish War, one of the interesting things that happened is that the children of the survivors of slavery, aka the Civil War that ended in 1865, the children were allowed to enter the US Army. So this is the first major war that you're having black soldiers. I'm saying first post-slavery, the first major war in which you have black American as soldiers serving the United States. And there were some of them who got sent to a colony of Spain, the Philippines. And they had a shock when they saw, contrary to what they've been told, and for those who doubt it, you can check, many of the indigenous Filipinos are the same color as us on the screen right now.
Mhm.
They were shocked. The shock was not just because many of the indigenous that they saw were of the same skin color as them, aka black, but they were shocked because they were representing the army of the country that enslaved the fathers and the mothers. What happens with Charlie Kirk here, martyr for the right, MAGA, another fascist? There's an expression in the left wing circles, a good fascist or a good Nazi is a dead Nazi. But for us black people, what does that mean? The tension between left and right, the far right and the far left, is beyond the US. It's across the entire Western world. This weekend, the greatest anti-immigration protest in the United Kingdom, 150,000 plus people were protested, right-wing white supremacists with Elon Musk, the future trillionaire, giving them encouragement, telling them if you don't fight, you die. You see, sowing the seeds for more violence and more hate. There will be a countermeasure. The MAGA people have been warned. Be careful going too far with the changes you're doing to the administration, because the cliche of the Democrats, that the Democrats don't have the venom of the Republicans in giving them retribution. The Democrats tend to try to restore the institutions for the maintaining of the United States system. But people become radicalized. This Charlie Kirk incident, and when I say incident, someone else will be assassinated. It doesn't just end like this with peace and love, especially when you have someone like Donald Trump in the White House who is making sure to add his part to the flames. This tension will make it worse for black people beyond already since January 20th that Trump has come back to power. Over 300,000 black women losing employment with the federal and state government. Black women will, more often than not, are the main bread earners in the families. And there are support to aunties and uncles, grandma and grandpa, and kids that they didn't conceive. You see, in child welfare, I often remind people, one of the reasons black people don't adopt or don't foster as much as white, very much not as much as white, is not because they don't love children, and there's many children, black children in foster care, and will need adoption. But it's because that black person you see working is also supporting other family members. I support people on both sides of the ocean, and I support organizations on both sides of the ocean. It's going to be worse for us black people because look at the rhetoric of Charlie Kirk just before he died. What was he trying to say?
Cesar, do I have permission to interrupt? Because we have someone calling in.
Please
Hold
go
on.
ahead.
All right. Caller, are you there?
I am,
Oh, there
Honorable
we.
Dr. Vibe.
And I think from your tones, myself and Dr. Tachi know whose that is. We have Leon from way over in England on the line. So good to have you here, Leon.
It's a pleasure and an honorable great pleasure here to be on this wonderful platform here this morning. It's about 3:15 in the morning, and I'm just
Wow.
tidying up. May I be quick? 'Cause I know this conversation is great, and a lot of people listening around the world, and I do honor your time. Before we start, um, uh, honorable touch. We start from the top, of course, and go to the left to the right. Greetings, honorable Tachi. Greetings, our wonderful guest Cesar, and yourself, Mr. Dr. Vibe. It's a pleasure, and once again, it's a great honor to be on this wonderful platform speaking with you on this topic. Mind you, I am very green on here. I've been under a rock, and then I've just caught a glimpse of this particular tragedy that's happening in the community today, and sort of profound to see what's happened. Another loss in the community, but why is the question? When is it going to stop? There's so many unanswered questions, which uh, I'm just confused to say the least here. We just had a rally here in the UK. I'm not going to mention any names, but it's somewhat disrupted the place. This it's an ever great trend what's happening, and I'm lost for words here. And I hope you guys, the experts here, can demystify this and put us at ease here, somewhere along the line. Help me here. I've got lots of unanswered questions here. And again, you professionals here. I have to say, because this today's show is something phenomenal, and I'm a student here, and I'm listening intensively to get some answers to what's happening. And I don't know if you had. I came in late, and a minute of silence to the family here. Condolences to the family if they're listening, if they're watching on replay here. This shouldn't have happened, and the way it's happened, because it's it's that kind of style of execution. This is not normal. We've got to look at this very, very carefully. And as Cesar said, this has happened exactly the same way. Is this a common pattern? What's going on? Are we missing something here?
Yeah, well, I'll let you stay on the line. I'll put that question to Dr. Tachi and Cesar. And already I'm saying we got to do a part 2 probably next week if we can at the same time, because there's so many other layers to cover. There's questions in the comments, but Cesar or Dr. Tachi, how would you like to respond or add on to what Leon has shared?
So yeah, Leon, let me speak as the person that lives in the U.S. There is a gun culture here that has been here from the beginning that basically dictates the way to solve disagreements and issues is with gunfire. The way to take care of problems is through violence. That's all this country knows. And I'm not going to say there are not other violent countries, not at all, but to the level of this, and people will probably say, "Oh, well, it's not that." Shut up. I'm saying this now. Shut up. It is. It's been terrible for quite a while. So Leon, the only thing I could say is this is something that is ingrained in this culture. The fact that others are dangerous has always been the narrative here because that gives them an excuse to perpetrate violence, to enslave, to indenture, whatever the case may be. That is the narrative. The narrative is violence is the only thing that solves these issues. The problem is that people are tired of sitting idly by and taking the violence from people, and this is inflaming things even more. So I don't profess to have all the answers. I don't. This is not necessarily my sole area of expertise or even my area of expertise. But I do know one thing that the violence is based on an irrational fear of others that they have perpetrated from the beginning. All you have to do, a perfect way to sum it up, if you've ever looked at, I think it was Bowling for Columbine that Michael Moore did, and there's a cartoon sequence that really explains this irrational fear. And they're like, oh, no, it's not that. It is that. It is that.
So, is there
I'll
anything you
pass
want
it
to add?
over.
Being in Canada, but you do have global perspective, being a Pan Africanist.
Just to finish what I was saying before Leon called, because it ties to that. Charlie Kirk got assassinated as he was trying to tie gang violence, aka black people, to be honest, with firearms death in America, basically implying that black people, gang violence, lack of fathers, ghetto communities, aka black people, are the main drivers of gun violence in America, which is false. False for all that we can absolutely denounce the per capita amount of homicide by black people and notably young, black, and dangerous people. That's a different conversation. So, they relate to what Brother Leon was speaking of from England, and he did mention the protests against immigration. It's not going to get better. It's not going to get better because, as many times I've mentioned here on Dr. Vibe, the Western world and notably America is going through a demographic change, which white supremacists interpret as the great replacement white supremacist philosophy, but is actually impacted by capitalism eating its own. I've said it before. The issues that come in the Western world can be summarized to two great things in terms of the mindset of the white supremacist. It's more complex than two things. Simply as possible. The ultimate dream is to go back to a times prior to the 1960s in which they had the jobs, men had the jobs, the top jobs. Non-whites were basically servants, if not slaves, birthing anywhere from 5 to 10 children, and everybody prayed to Jesus, aka white Jesus, blonde hair, blue-eyed, which absolutely doesn't fit what any Jesus, Yahushua, would have looked like 2,000 years ago in Roman-occupied Judea Palestine. This is not a reality, it's a fiction they created with violence. The pilgrims, the immigrants, the people who left Europe to come to the Americas and Australia were the bottom of society. They were not the people
Bottom.
in the court. Those were the rejected. If you were good in England or in France or in Holland and Prussia or in Spain in the 1600s and 1700s or 1500s, you didn't leave to go for 3 months at sea and risk the wilderness and the cold weather of Canada and the indigenous in South America. You didn't risk that. Right here in Canada, Dr. Vibe, up to 1/3 to half of people in Quebec, white people in Quebec. Quebec, Dr. Tachi, is often referenced as the most racist province in Canada. 1/3 to half of white people in Quebec are descendants of what's called les filles du roi, the girls of the king, the daughters of the king, which was a title for poor, uneducated, prostitute girls in France who didn't have a future. So what they were doing? They were shipping them to New France, aka Canada and Louisiana, aka Louisiana, that was 1/3 of the US. Australia, they own the ancestry. Overwhelmingly, white people there are the descendant of the people who were in jail in England. They were given a choice: you stay in jail or you go try your chance in Australia. So those are the bottom, and thus, when you are the bottom, that inferiority complex mixed with survival create a psychology of violence. The little piece of land that I gotta defend it because you didn't get it legitimately. You didn't get it legitimately, and further to that, you want to expand because we're talking here about white supremacy in the age of the kings. Let me give a little bit of respect to the fact that George Washington, as much as he was a slave master through his wife, it's his wife who was a slave master. So right now, you look at America, think about any person last name Washington, it's a black person. It's a black person. There's no white people, unless it's a white woman who married a black man. There's no white people with a last name Washington. When you look at Jefferson, you have white Jeffersons, you have black Jeffersons, and you have mixed Jeffersons because of Jefferson's white wife, black Sally Hemings. You know where I'm going with this. But George Washington served his 2 terms at a time where if he had decided to remain and stay king, like George III, they would have said, okay. No, he decided, you know what, I'm going to step down so that democracy can survive. But in the very Constitution of the United States, all men are born free, equal, but they kept the Africans as slaves. The Second Amendment that was fitted for the 18th century got interpreted in a maximalist interpretation by the Supreme Court, just as when we talk about politics, 2009, they broke the seal for funding of political parties, which is why politics in America have become so corrupted as corporations and millionaires and billionaires can fund as much as they can. So how does it relate to what's happening in England? Is the same conversation. I go back to what I was saying in terms of the 2 simple solutions. I gave one. If white men are willing to go back and work those menial jobs that are below them, and if white women, because it's about white women, the conversation about abortion, to be forced to have 5 to 10 plus kids and put Jesus back in school, that's what they're trying to go back to. A world before the 1960s, a world before civil rights, social justice, second wave of feminism, environmental consciousness, LGBTQ rights. This is what they're trying to go to. It's going to get worse because as they are seeing that the immigrants, the foreigners, the blacks, the browns are not only becoming more educated, but they're becoming an integral part of culture and society. Look at the rise of interracial relationships, not just among celebrities, but even among the common people. For those who are white supremacists, you got to understand, all studies confirm there is a difference in terms of the brain functioning of people who are conservative, centered on fear, versus people who are liberal minded, basically centered on hope and change.
All right. Cesar,
It will get worse.
I'm going to cut you there because we're running out of time.
Oh,
Leon,
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
I got
any
you.
final quick comments? Because I'm going to let you go. But we are going to do a part two, and before we sign off this day, I'll see if we can commit to doing it the same time next Thursday. But any 30 seconds.
I'll close out here. I mean, first of all, wonderful discussion here. Food for, I'm a student here. Lots of great points, and I must admit, well, where do we go from here? And that's I'm looking for. Great answer, Honourable Caesar here, giving us some close of some things there's something to think about here, and where we're going and what is coming towards us. And I'm sure Dr. Tachi will chime in on this, and she's got a lot to say on this as well. But I will leave this open if there's other people to come in and chime in here. Great platform. Keep it going, and it's a pleasure and a great honor to be here with you guys
All
as
right.
a student.
Our pleasure. Have a great morning and all the best to you and your family, especially your mother.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Be well.
See you.
All right. All the
May
way
I
from
just
England. Wonderful. I don't want to go too much on because I know Dr. Tachi, you've had a long day, and
yeah, but I just wanted to
I'm hoping we can do a part two. But go ahead.
just really quickly to where do we go from here? That's not for us to say. This has never been Black people's problem to solve. It's not our problem to solve. So you all take it up amongst yourselves on what you're going to do about this because we've done enough, quite frankly. We have been fighting for the, and this, when I say Black people, I'm talking about the diaspora worldwide. We've done enough. It is time for the rest of you to get off your duckus and do something to solve this problem. Because what happens whenever something happens, they look to us and will always step in and like, okay, well, let's do this. Oh, well, let's raise money for. No, we're tired of doing this. You do something for once because our lack of action now shows how much you've just been doing nothing all along. So, where do we go from here? That's not for us to say. That's for them to solve.
All right.
Quick
One
question,
last comment,
Greg.
Cesar.
Well, one of the things that's not talked much about Charlie Kirk, and again, he should not have been killed for his words. He should have been debated, humiliated, exposed, as when he claimed Justice Ketanji Brown was a DII hire, and it was pointed out that he's a community college dropout. But one of the things that's not often talked about is how he disparaged and insulted rap music. Rap music, which is born out of the combating oppression in Black and Latin brown communities. And here, I'm wearing, as everybody can see, a Wu-Tang sweater, rap music. Why am I wearing this? The first album had two titles, Cream, Cash Rules Everything Around Me, about the impact of money in the ghetto, but truly society as a whole. And we know how money is impacting politics, and notably these MAGA podcasters. But they also had another title, and I am mindful of how it may come off. Protect Your Neck. It is interesting to remember that Charlie Kirk mocked the death of our brother George Floyd, who was killed at the neck level, and himself, Charlie Kirk, got shot in the neck. But at the same time, the message in protect your neck, is in regards to the influence and trying to deviate the authenticity, the integrity of rap music for commercial success and for the culture vultures. Charlie Kirk died trying to link gang violence, aka Black people, to the issues of gun in the US. We can talk about gang violence, we can talk about fatherlessness, we can talk about rap music in the Black community. It is not for a white person, white supremacist, to try to paint the narrative when he has so much negative things that he said about the Black community, fallacies that he said purposefully. Purposefully. I want our Black people to notice how white of the right, far right, MAGA are going to eat each other. Extremists, they're coming now as a show, but already we can see so-called true MAGA and so-called fake MAGA. I will stop there for now.
All right. That is a wrap. Well, some comments that come in. There's some things we can't address, but hopefully, I'm going to ask right now, are both you available the same time next week?
Tuesday? Yes, I think so.
Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, it is a Tuesday. Next Tuesday.
Mhm.
Cesar, would you be available?
I'll be on a trip, but I can't make it.
Oh, okay. Well, wait. You don't have to jump. I can get other people, but I don't want
I'll be at the hotel. I'll make it.
Okay. Cesar is all right. Some final comments. ACBN Canada says the real question is, where are the Epstein files?
That's a whole exactly, Ryan. Exactly.
Well, some people are saying this is wonderful for 40 cents because it's just more distraction away from those files.
Isn't it interesting how we have distraction after distraction after distraction?
It seems to be manufactured.
Well, he has Marjorie Taylor Greene, who will make sure to come back. One of his own, again, who is siding with the victims. Very interesting what's going to happen there.
All right. ACBN Canada asks, we have to ask ourselves who is benefiting the most from this man's death. The Democrats have gained nothing, yet the Republicans are using it as a rallying cry.
I wouldn't be so sure. Just give it time. It's still very recent. Just give it.
And C Nurse K, good to have you here. ACBN mic drop. It is insane that I have not heard a thing about the Epstein files. Only in the comment sections of videos about this. And
you're not going to. Remember who owns the mainstream media.
Yep. Oh, and the lady who got fired from the Washington Post is Karen Ataya. She got let go.
Yep.
And also, though, interesting, there's another gentleman who's a producer of a Fox Sports radio show in Las Vegas. He made some comments. He got let go.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan O'Neill Knight says, I wouldn't go that far, although the shooter clearly had no plan. Let's see what else we got.
Think.
Ryan says, the fact that HBCUs got threats just shows you that they are waiting for any excuse to attack Black people. But interesting enough, 47 says he's going to be giving a pile of money to HBCUs.
Okay, let's not fall
Dr.
for the
Lab, I
distractions.
can't hear you. I am frozen.
Yeah, we can hear you. And then Ryan asks, Black people had nothing to do with this man and his supporters. His supporters want to attack us. Why? I think if you've watched this, listen to this, we've given enough reason. And then C Nurse K ends off saying, great show, always very informative and insightful. Good night, everyone. Yes, I think and good morning to Cesar. All right. Yes. So we'll leave it at that. So as we wind down, a few things. Again, if you want to get a hold of Cesar, you can get a hold of him at email, President Roots and Culture Canada, Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery, Dr. Tachi. You can catch her on Instagram at dr_TACHI. I like to say Tache. And don't forget to visit Indie Soup Media on YouTube. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to it. Please and thank you. And then finally, if you want to get a hold of me, very simple. There's a link, toplink.cc/The Dr. Vibe Show. And 2, you can watch replays of all the conversations I do, not just of Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and I got to correct that, and the Dr. Vibe Show website, the drvibeshow.com. So this is how we ended off. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions. Aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Remember to give yourself grace. And if you're not making money, make history. Try to do both and always make it better. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith. Walk good. And we'll see you soon. Hopefully you come back next Tuesday. Keep the faith. Wow.
Yep.
I feel like I'm in class with Dr. Alicia. That's a class I wouldn't skip. There's some other ones I'd like to skip, but I'm glad I'm not skipping this class tonight. So I'm hoping you're catching this live, but if not, certainly catch it on the replay because this is good stuff that Joe is laying down here. Get ready. When I saw this today, I said one word. Aya!
Did you really?
No. I felt like this is
it's an incredible document that I'm going to suggest that you take and use as a lecture piece wherever you want to go.